Tuesday, June 23rd. Let us start with the most immediate and visceral nightmare, the situation with Cassius, Dante, and Lulu. Cassius has finally dropped the ultimate bombshell. He knows exactly where Rocco is. But instead of this being a moment of pure relief, Cassius twists the knife by forcing Dante and Lulu into an impossible corner. He demands that they make an immediate decision on how to proceed. This is where it gets incredibly interesting from a psychological standpoint. Cassius is not just handing over coordinates. He is handing over a moral and tactical anchor, and he is watching them drown with it. He explicitly warns them about the catastrophic risk of making the wrong move. If they rush in blindly, driven by their desperate parental instincts, they run the terrifying risk of leading Cullum straight to the location. Put yourself in Dante and Lulu's shoes for a second. The agony of knowing your child is out there, knowing exactly where he is, but being told that your very presence could be the thing that gets him or the people with him killed. Dante is a seasoned detective. He knows how to handle hostage situations, extractions, and tactical entries. But all of that training evaporates the second it is your own blood on the line. Lulu is practically vibrating with a mother's panic, a primal need to just get to her boy. Cassius is using that panic. He is weaponizing their love for Rocco to ensure they play by his rules. It is a masterful, albeit incredibly cruel, manipulation of their deepest vulnerabilities. But then, Cassius adds a fascinating caveat that completely shifts our understanding of his motives. Amidst all this heavy-handed pressuring and tactical maneuvering, he makes a point to demand assurance that Britt will be treated fairly when the dust finally settles. Why does he care so much about Britt in this exact moment? This is the layer of humanity that makes Cassius so dangerously compelling. He is not just a cold, calculating machine. He recognizes Britt's vulnerability, her sickness, and the sheer terror she must be experiencing while on the run. By advocating for her, Cassius proves that he is not entirely devoid of empathy, which ironically makes him even harder for Dante and Lulu to navigate. You can fight a monster, but how do you fight someone who is holding your child's life in one hand and advocating for a sick woman's dignity in the other? Meanwhile, across town at the police precinct, we have a completely different kind of psychological warfare playing out. Joe is standing there, staring at a newly arrived clue regarding an ongoing case. But instead of a breakthrough, this feels like a trap. The information is heavily delayed. Why now? Why is this specific piece of intelligence dropping onto his desk at this exact moment? Joe is a smart guy, and his immediate reaction is suspicion rather than celebration. In a town where evidence is routinely bought, buried, or fabricated, a delayed clue is never an accident. It is a breadcrumb dropped by someone who is playing a much longer, much darker game. Joe realizes that he is not just solving a crime, he is being invited into a labyrinth, and whoever designed the maze is currently watching him take his first steps. Let us pivot for a moment to the art gallery, where a masterclass in stubbornness and self-preservation is currently unfolding. Ava is standing her ground against Ethan, flat out refusing to be escorted to see Sunny unless a worthwhile deal is placed on the table. If you ask me, this is quintessential Ava. She does not move a single inch unless she knows exactly what she is getting in return. It is a purely transactional way of living, born out of years of being burned by the power players in her orbit. She views every interaction as a negotiation, because if she doesn't, she loses her power. She believes her leverage is an impenetrable shield. But we really have to ask ourselves, is this bravery, or is it sheer, unadulterated hubris? Ethan is standing right there, trying to act as the voice of reason, practically begging her to realize the gravity of the situation. He issues a very clear, chilling warning that keeping Sunny waiting is a spectacularly bad idea. And Ethan is absolutely right. Sunny is not a man who accepts being put on hold, especially not when the stakes are this high and his patience is already running on fumes. Yet, Ava anchors her heels deeper into the floorboards. History has shown us, time and time again, that when you try to outbargain a volatile man who is already running hot, you usually end up paying a price far higher than whatever deal you were trying to strike in the first place. Ava is playing with fire, and she is convinced she won't get burned because she is holding the matches. Speaking of trying to breathe in a suffocating environment, we need to talk about Trina. She is actively pushing back against Portia and Curtis, asking for less attention so she can finally focus on her own life. On the surface, this might look like standard young adult rebellion, a simple desire for independence. But if we dig deeper, this is about emotional survival. Trina is carrying the immense weight of her upcoming premiere, a moment that should be entirely hers to celebrate. Instead, she feels the constant heavy blanket of her parents' anxiety and their unresolved trauma wrapping around her. Portia and Curtis love her deeply. There is no denying that. But sometimes, parental love can be so fiercely protective that it becomes a cage. Trina is realizing that if she does not set a hard boundary right now, she will be swallowed whole by their drama. She is fighting for her own identity in a family that constantly demands her emotional labor. And then we have Willow. Oh, Willow. She has spent the last few weeks frantically trying to control the narrative, staging dramatic falls, manipulating investigations, and trying to stay one step ahead of the people she perceives as threats. She thought she was the puppet master, but the universe has a very dark sense of humor. Suddenly, there is an uninvited guest at her door, and she is thrown into an absolute panic. She insists this person cannot be there, her carefully constructed facade crumbling in an instant. The sheer terror of losing control is radiating off her. It is highly likely that this reckless arrival is Sidwell, a wanted man, a dangerous fugitive, casually strolling up to her house to deliver orders. This is the moment Willow realizes that she is not playing the game. The game is playing her. You cannot dabble in the dark, align yourself with dangerous elements, and then expect to keep your pristine suburban life completely insulated. Sidwell's reckless appearance shatters the illusion that Willow can compartmentalize her life. The danger is no longer theoretical. It is standing in her living room, demanding her attention, and she has absolutely zero leverage to make it go away. But let me stop right here and play devil's advocate with myself for a minute. Am I being entirely too harsh on these characters? Am I expecting them to act with perfect rationality in a world that is inherently irrational? Maybe Ava is completely justified in demanding a deal because in her world, a verbal promise is worth absolutely nothing. Maybe she has to be ruthless to survive. And maybe Willow isn't a malicious manipulator, but rather a deeply terrified mother who is just throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks, desperately trying to protect her family from forces she barely understands. Perhaps the silence and the secrets are not weapons, but the only armor these people have left. It is a compelling counter-argument, and it forces us to look at their terrible decisions through a lens of profound empathy. However, that empathy hits a brick wall when we look at Chase and Brooklyn. This dynamic right now is, without a doubt, the most tragic and difficult thing to watch on the entire canvas. We see them sharing a genuinely lighthearted, fun moment. Chase is teasing her, laughing, completely relaxed. He looks at his wife with absolute trust and adoration. And Brooklyn smiles back, soaking in the warmth of her husband's love. It is a beautiful domestic scene. But beneath that smile, Brooklyn is hiding a monstrous, vindictive secret. She is actively, maliciously framing Willow for a severe crime, using fabricated GPS evidence to destroy another woman's life. And the darkest irony of it all is that she is sitting right next to the very detective who will eventually have to untangle this web. Chase is oblivious. He believes in the law, he believes in justice, and most importantly, he believes in Brooklyn. When the truth inevitably comes to light, and it always does, it will not just be a legal scandal. It will be the total annihilation of Chase's worldview. Brooklyn is not just risking her own freedom, she is actively detonating the foundation of her marriage, all while smiling in her husband's face. So, Where does this leave us? We are watching a town full of people who are holding their breath, waiting for the other shoe to drop. Cassius is forcing hands. Ava is rolling the dice. Willow is staring into the face of her own consequences. And Brooklyn is dancing on the edge of a cliff while holding her husband's hand. The bombs are planted, the timers are ticking down, and the only question left is who is going to be standing closest to the blast radius when the silence finally shatters.
Goodbye. Please like, subscribe, and comment on the GH Spoilers Daily channel.